Stay tuned for my review of the Miami and Duke game. And now for my review. This is Dan White, and I'm just a little bit nervous about this game against Duke at Hard Rock Stadium this coming Saturday. Just a little bit nervous, that's all. I'm coming to you from my backyard studio on a quite chilly day here in Appling, Georgia. It was 32 degrees this morning, and it's still kind of chilly. This is my preview of the Miami and Duke game to be played at 12:30 this Saturday, October the 22nd, 2022, at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. This is a key game for both teams as they seek to win 6 games and become bowl eligible. Last Saturday, Miami led Virginia Tech wire to wire at Lane Field and managed to hang on for a 20-14 victory, even though the Hokies made a gallant effort in the fourth quarter, scoring 2 touchdowns. This Saturday, Miami goes against a much improved Duke team led by new head coach Mike Elko. You, like me, have probably never heard of Mike Elko. Who is he? Well, he was raised in South Brunswick, New Jersey. He graduated in 1995 from South Brunswick High School, where he played basketball, baseball, and was the quarterback for the school's football team. He was recognized by the coaches of the Greater Middlesex Conference as the league's top quarterback in 1994 and was inducted into the school's Athletic Hall of Fame in 2012. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League school where he played for the Penn Quakers football team that won the Ivy League championship in 1998. He came to Duke from Notre Dame. Prior to being named defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, Elko had coached under Dave Clawson for 12 seasons. He spent 2 seasons with Clawson at both Fordham and Richmond, 5 seasons with him at Bowling Green, and 3 seasons with Clawson at Wake Forest. During the 2016 season, Elko's Wake Forest defense ranked in the top 20 in defensive touchdowns scored, turnovers, red zone defense, sacks, and scoring defense. Alabama, Clemson, and Washington were 3 other FBS teams to accomplish this on defense, and were among the 4 teams selected to compete in that season's college football playoff. The Fighting Irish fired defensive coordinator Brian Van Gorder the prior September after Notre Dame started the season with a 1-3 record and a defense ranked 3rd from the bottom. On January the 4th, 2018, Elko was hired by Jimbo Fisher as the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M, inking a 3-year deal averaging $1.8 million a year. In 2020, Texas A&M was 9th in the country in total defense. In 2021, Texas A&M was 20th in the country in total defense. Midway through this season, the Blue Devils are 6th and 5th in the ACC in scoring offense and defense. Duke is averaging 32.86 points per game, while its defense is allowing 22.29 points per outing. Duke ranks 6th in the ACC in total offense, averaging 434.43 yards per outing. Its 3,041 offensive yards on the year ranked 3rd, while its 6.5 yards per play placed the Blue Devils 4th in the league. Through the first 7 games, the Blue Devils also have registered 29 total touchdowns to rank tied for 4th in the conference. That total is 2 shy of last year's entire season with 31 touchdowns. The Blue Devils rank 5th in the ACC in time of possession, averaging 31.08 minutes per game. So far this season, Duke has put together 2 7-minute drives and 2 6-minute drives. Last season, the Blue Devils finished last in the ACC in scoring defense with 39.8 points. This season, under their new coach, Mike Elko, they rank 5th in the ACC in scoring defense, limiting their opponents to just 22.29 points per game. That's quite an improvement. In regards to punting, after 7 games this season, the Blue Devils are 5th in the ACC in net punting with a 39.42 yard mark. Miami punter Lou Hedley, on the other hand, is averaging 45.4 yards per punt with a long of 58 yards and has pinned opponents 9 times, inside their 20-yard line. For Miami, punter Lou Hedley is a semifinalist for the William V. Campbell Trophy. Last season, he was a semifinalist for the Ray Guy Award, and he is among the finest punters in the nation. Coach Mario Cristobal said that Hedley creates a lot of hidden yardage in our favor. Not to mention, he does a lot of different things. He can rugby kick, he can roll right, he can roll left, and he can kick it. He can kick it like a pitching wedge. When you're in plus territory near the 50, he not only creates good field position, but he also prevents his punts from being blocked because he understands the schemes really well and the block points. Hedley is also an exceptional human being. Coach Cristobal said, "I'd like to have a ton of Lou Hedleys. He's a dedicated, committed, and invested guy. His hard work has paid off big time." And now how about turnovers? After Duke's first 7 games this season, Duke leads the nation with 10 fumble recoveries. 9 different Blue Devils have accounted for those recoveries. Senior wide receiver Jalen Calhoun ranks 8th in the conference in all-purpose yards with a mark of 530. The Greenville, South Carolina native has compiled 411 yards receiving. He has 95 punt and 24 kick return yards. He earned a career best 24-yard kick return and a 43-yard punt return against the Virginia Cavaliers earlier this season. After 7 games this season, the Blue Devils are 5th in the ACC in net punting with a 39.42 mark. Our quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, drew praise from Duke coach Mike Elko. He said this: "It feels like it's every week. It was Brennan Armstrong, Jalen Daniels, Jeff Sims. You know there are a lot of talented quarterbacks that we faced. Tyler Van Dyke certainly is no different. I think, though, that we're getting better each week in executing the pass defense the way we want it. It's just not quite there. We're continuing to work. Some of it's fundamental, and some of it is technique. Some of it is just understanding schematically what we're trying to get accomplished. It is just different." Elko continued, "The pass defense is probably the biggest difference philosophically, and we are just trying to continue to improve it. You certainly learn every time you go out there against an explosive offense. You learn things about what you're capable of and how to execute at a high level. And hopefully that carries over into this week against Miami." Well, Miami ended a 3-game losing streak with a win at Virginia Tech. Miami has won 15 games and lost 4 all time versus Duke. The Hurricanes are 14-3 against Duke. Miami has won the last 2 games, but the Blue Devils won the prior 2 games against the Hurricanes. This game could be decided by how well Miami defends the Duke run. Duke is 24th nationally, averaging 205.86 rushing yards per game. But Miami is 12th nationally, allowing only 96.5 rushing yards per game. This will be the key matchup with 2 of the biggest strengths for each team directly matching up. Duke quarterback Riley Leonard is 6th in the ACC in passer rating and 10th in passing yards per game. Expect Miami to stack the box and make Leonard just try and beat them. Offensively, the Miami pass offense has improved significantly in the past 2 games. Tyler Van Dyke has thrown for 847 yards in the past 2 games. Duke is 13 out of 15 total schools in the ACC, allowing 260.5 passing yards per game. The Blue Devils allow 281.2 passing yards per game versus FBS opponents. Against Power 5 opponents, Duke is averaging 314.6 passing yards per game, which is last in the ACC. We should be able to really put some passing yard numbers up against Duke. Now, Van Dyke had 381 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions last year versus Duke. Last year, Miami won 47-10. In 2020, Miami won 48-0. This is what Mario Cristobal said about Duke. Duke runs the ball better and protects the passer better than any other team in the ACC. Duke has the number 13 rushing defense in the nation. We have to contain quarterback Riley Leonard and keep him in the pocket, or better yet, sack him. He leads the team in rushing and is one of the leaders in the ACC this season with 420 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. Miami had 3 drops last week against Virginia Tech on 47 attempts. Van Dyke had 29 completions on 47 passes for a 63% completion rate. He had a 7.6 yard average along with 2 touchdowns. After its last 2 seasons, Duke has lost 17 of its 18 ACC games. The Blue Devils haven't finished with a winning record in league play. Poor old Duke, but I don't feel sorry for them. They haven't had a winning record in league play since 2014. Duke has but 5 wins in the last 2 seasons combined and no bowl games over the last 3 seasons. These are 2 reasons why Mike Elko is Duke's coach and David Cutcliffe is not. The coaching change is one of 4 new head coaches in the ACC this year. Now, Duke is aiming to get back where Duke was during the last decade when Cutcliffe led the Blue Devils to 6 bowl games in 7 seasons from 2012 to 2018. But lo and behold, Elko has Duke at 4 wins and 3 losses, and he's 2/3 of the way to bowl eligibility, 7 games into his first head coaching job. Last season, Duke started 3-1 under Cutcliffe before losing all 8 of its ACC games. However, the outlook is better this season. ESPN's Football Power Index places Duke's chance of achieving bowl eligibility at 75.6%. The Pro Football Focus ratings have the Blue Devils' chances of making a bowl game at 63%, projecting a 6-win season. The weak seasons turned in so far by 2 of the ACC teams remaining on Duke's schedule give the Blue Devils hope. Virginia Tech and Boston College both have worse bowl chances according to ESPN. New coach Mario Cristobal re-energized the Hurricanes program this offseason, spawning plenty of the U is back. But a 17-9 loss at Texas A&M dampened that, and an embarrassing and humiliating loss to Middle Tennessee squashed it. Still, Miami has a solid quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke, who has improved the last 2 weeks after a rough start. He threw for 496 yards against the Tar Heels and 351 yards against the Hokies. But the U is a long way from being back. This is a tough road game for the Blue Devils. Duke won at Miami in 2018 to clinch bowl eligibility that season, and so there are good vibes for the Blue Devils. Still, Miami is a 9-point favorite, so it would take an upset for Duke. Coach Mike Elko is ready to inject new life and energy into the Blue Devil program. Since being hired, Elko has changed Duke's workout program, talent evaluation process, and has already assembled a top 30 recruiting class for the current crop of high school seniors. He also did what he could to reinforce this season's roster by adding numerous upperclassmen transfers. The defense last year, specifically the secondary, gave up 200 yards on the ground, 300 through the air, and wow, last year they gave up 50 points per game during ACC play. Turnovers, in fact, have killed this program for the last 2 or 3 seasons. For the last few seasons, the Blue Devils were the worst team in Power 5 football in the turnover category. A football team doesn't go 2-9 because it is deficient in one area. But if we assign blame for last season, then turnovers have to absorb a lot of that blame. There were 127 teams playing FBS football last season. Duke ranked 127 out of 27 in turnovers with 39. Georgia Tech and Mississippi State tied for 125th with 25. In 2020, Duke was 2 wins and 9 losses. In 2021, Duke was 3 wins and 9 losses, and Cutcliffe was fired. In 2022 so far, Duke is 4 wins and 3 losses. Duke was all by itself in the woeful turnover category. Duke averaged 3.54 turnovers per game last year. Miami reporter Chris Stock wrote that the defense is preparing to slow down the Blue Devils' rushing attack. When defensive coordinator Kevin Steele was asked what he is concerned with in facing Duke, this is what he said. The 206 yards per game rushing against pretty much everybody they've played. Miami is preparing to host Duke on Saturday on RSN or ESPN3. Check your local listings, your cable for what if you can get those channels. The Blue Devils will be entering the game second in the ACC in rushing and 24th nationally, but has lost 2 in a row. The Hurricanes are third in the conference and 12th nationally in defending the run. Steele said Duke is very effective in running the football. They've got good run schemes. Duke has 4 players ranked in the top 25 in the ACC in rushing, led by quarterback Riley Leonard, who is 6th with 420 yards to go with 5 touchdowns. Running backs Jordan Waters has 363 yards and 6 touchdowns. Jalen Coleman has rushed for 307 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Jaquez Moore has rushed for 251 yards and 2 touchdowns. They are each averaging at least 5 yards per carry. But I think the Miami defense will be up to stopping Duke's running backs. Riley Leonard is 5th in the ACC in passing with 1,557 yards to go with his 420 rushing yards, which is 5th most nationally for a quarterback. Coach Steele said he's very good with his feet. When you get a quarterback who can throw the ball and throw it accurately, like Duke's quarterback and like North Carolina's quarterback, Drake May, you've got to be on point with that. We've got to make sure to keep him in the well. Make him throw from the well. Don't let him scramble and let him move the chains. On top of that, we got to be able to stop the run. The Hurricanes have allowed 96.5 rushing yards per game, and their 3.0 yards per carry allowed is the second best in the ACC. Only 2 teams, North Carolina with 161 rushing yards and Texas A&M with 124 rushing yards against us, have eclipsed the 100-yard mark as a team against the Hurricanes. Miami has not allowed an individual 100-yard rusher this season. Duke's defense has caused 12 turnovers, which ranks second in the ACC. Miami will have to protect the ball and avoid Duke from stealing it. Offensively, Duke is averaging 32.9 points per game and averaging 434 yards per game. The Blue Devils are coming off a 38-35 loss to North Carolina. The Tar Heels scored the game-winning touchdown with 16 seconds left on the clock. And Georgia Tech beat Duke in overtime 23-20. Now here are 3 key players for Duke. Number 1, quarterback Riley Leonard. Leonard is probably the best quarterback in the ACC that you don't know yet. You ever heard of him? I hadn't. At 6'4" and 212 pounds, Leonard is a sophomore that has the tools to play at the professional level if he continues to develop his game. Leonard has thrown for 1,557 yards with 9 touchdowns and 4 interceptions while completing 65.7% of his passes. He's an effective runner. He's totaled 420 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's a strong runner, averaging an impressive 4.08 yards per carry after contact. Leonard doesn't have much help in terms of talent that's surrounding him with this otherwise weak Duke attack. Defenses know they need to key on Leonard to make the Blue Devils sputter, but yet he has shown the ability to produce at a high level nonetheless. He is coming off a performance against a loss to North Carolina in which he threw for 245 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. He rushed for 130 yards and 1 touchdown. He threw for 300 yards against Temple and Kansas. Miami linebacker Corey Flagg said this about Leonard. He's a great player. We've been studying him. He keeps his eyes downfield. It's all about preparation and preparing for the moment and being able to tackle in space. Our coaches like Charlie Strong and Kevin Steele have done a great job preparing us to face him. The second key player for Duke is running back Jordan Waters. At 6 feet, 214 pounds, Waters is a sturdy back that has rushed for 363 yards this season and 6 touchdowns. He's averaging 5 yards per carry. Waters coming off a strong showing against North Carolina in which he totaled 91 yards and 2 touchdowns on 51 carries. He is averaging 3.44 yards per carry after contact and has forced 21 missed tackles on the year. And the third key player is defensive tackle DeJuan Carter. You'll be hard-pressed to find a more disruptive pass rusher from the interior than Carter. He's a fourth-year junior at 6 feet 3 and 298 pounds. According to PFF, Carter leads Duke in pressures with 31 on the season and has generated at least 5 pressures in 4 games. This year, Temple, Kansas, Virginia, and North Carolina. He is second in the country in pressures from the defensive tackle spot, trailing only Jer'Zhan Newton of Illinois, who has 34 pressures. Carter has totaled 21 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. Carter does need to clean up his tackling at times. He's been credited with 7 missed tackles this year. Miami is heavily favored to win at home this Saturday. Kane Sport pundit Matt Shadell has Miami winning by 3 touchdowns. YouTuber T2Y says Miami 22-10.
I feel if we got Coleman back, I like our chances with a motivated Duke squad. Listen, it don't matter who you get back. You can have all your squad. We're still going to beat the brakes off you. Plain and simple. Don't get it twisted, Nancy. We're going to beat the brakes off of you. Brakes off of you.
Betting lines have Miami favored by 8.5, with some at 9.5 favorites. But whatever the odds are, Miami winning. They can't come out slow. They got to come out with another fast start like in last week's Virginia Tech game, where they jumped out to a 17-0 halftime lead and held on in the fourth quarter to take a 20-14 victory. This Duke team can't be taken lightly, in my opinion, like the team took Middle Tennessee. Now, Duke can put up some points. In fact, odds makers are saying that 58 total points will be scored in this game. Let's just hope that Miami gets 48 out of that 58. Now, that'll do it for my preview. Thanks for watching, and go Canes! Now, I'll have my review of this game Sunday or sometime Monday posted on YouTube. So please look for it. And thank you all so much for watching.